For centuries, traders and explorers have been captivated by the fabled East Indies, that group of spice-rich islands in the Indonesian archipelago. My mission was to visit these remote islands, and what better way to do this than to sail on a ketch called the Ombak Putih to discover the origins of nutmeg and cloves. Our objective was to meet the boat at Ambon and then sail to Banda, southeast, before heading northwest through the Banda Sea and north to the historic islands of Tidore and Ternate. We landed at Ambon and immediately began to explore the island. Many of the Spice Islands have old forts on them, like this one here, which is called Fort Amsterdam. It's been kept in very good condition and much better than ones like Fort Revenge, which is on the island of A, and sadly is very much in ruins, but an amazing place to visit.
Well, Ian, this feels like a dream come true. Who would have thought that we would have ended up on the Banda Islands, actually in a nutmeg plantation, and surrounded by these nutmeg trees and the huge canary trees that are shading them. But the history is something that's so fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you know, Europeans dreamt of reaching the fabled Spice Islands, and after 1500 years they finally arrived in Banda, the Portuguese, Francisco Serrao and Antonio Abreu, to seek out these nutmegs, which were so valuable once they reached from here halfway across the world to Europe.
Yes, and then they sort of almost started mini wars, didn't they, over the control of them?
Well, you know, the Portuguese fought the Spanish, the Dutch fought the Portuguese, the English fought the Dutch. So yeah, it's been going on for thousands of years.
Yeah, and a bit of a gory history in some respects, but now things sort of feel pretty good here, don't they?
Well, yeah, now it's nice and peaceful, at least for the last 10 years.
Yes, which was great. Well, it's been a fantastic experience being here, and I think, you know, we've got lots more to see while we're in this wonderful area.
And at last we finally get to see nutmeg trees that are ready to harvest. And this is
something that I've wanted to do for most of my life. Here we are in a nutmeg plantation on Bandanyera, and it is just absolutely amazing to be somewhere where nutmeg trees have grown for more centuries than we really know. The history of the trade is absolutely extraordinary, and although many of the old trees were destroyed, we now have lots of new plantation trees. There's this wonderful symbiotic relationship between the nutmeg trees and the canary trees, because the canary trees have to be grown to provide the shade for the nutmeg trees. And in a nutmeg plantation like this, there are literally hundreds of trees. And when the nutmegs are harvested by hand, they're all harvested by hand, and the nutmegs are cut open, the mace is removed from the nut and then dried in the sun. And then when the nut is dry and you shake it and you can hear it rattle, then you know you can break it open and you get the valuable nutmeg inside. And this is the main place in the world where nutmeg is exported from.
So if you wondered how they managed to pick nutmegs that are so high up in the tree, this ingenious bamboo pole picks them. There you can see the nutmeg fruit. Inside is the nutmeg, and that red section surrounding it is the aril. It's the bit we call mace, and then the nutmeg is inside. The mace is put out into the sun to dry, and that gives us the spice called mace. The nutmegs are also put out in the sun, still in their shells. When they rattle inside, the shells are cracked off. This photograph of Gunung Api was taken by my grandfather in 1911. He wasn't a spice trader, he was in the pearling industry. But notice the top of the island, how round and smooth it is. Compare it today with the way Gunung Api looks, because that is the result of the eruption that happened in 1988, which has changed the whole look of it, which was an amazing... And now we sail on to the island of Obalottu, where you can see the distinctive shape of the clove trees growing up the hills in the island.
Ian, I always wanted to come to this area in the Indonesian archipelago, but I thought, how in the blazes am I going to get here? And you found a very special boat that's in the background.
There it is, that's right.
Yeah, how did you find it?
Oh, through the modern use of the internet, easy. Yeah. Sea Trek Bali, there's the insignia, we'll give them a little advertisement.
Yes, yes.
But they sail around all the islands.
Yeah,
and this is a special trip for our group, which is great.
Yeah, and it's just such a wonderful way to see this area, an area that so many Europeans haven't been to, and almost one of the last paradises on earth, I think, from experiences that we've got ahead of us. Yeah.
And we can't wait to go up and see the clove trees up on the hillsides.
No, that's a good idea. Let's head off and get some.
All right.
And when we found the clove trees, of course, what we see here is the clove bud ready to be picked. And notice how one has started to flower. It's no great surprise that it is a relation to the Australian eucalyptus. These are clove buds that have been put out in the sun to dry. During the drying process, an enzyme that naturally occurs in the cloves turns them dark brown, creates the flavour and the volatile oils. And at last I found a couple of tons of cloves in a warehouse on the historic island of Ternate.
I'm finally on the Spice Island of Ternate, the home of cloves, with Ian Burnet, author of an amazing book called Spice Islands, about the history of the spice trade. And in many respects, when it comes to cloves, this is where it all started. Ian, can you give me a bit of an idea as to the timeline as to the European influence and what really attracted them to Ternate in particular?
Well, for a millennium, the spice trade from Ternate all the way through China, India, Middle East to Europe. And in 1512, the Portuguese first arrived here, so they found their way back around the Cape of Good Hope and finally reached the mythical and famous Spice Islands. And that's when they started bringing cloves directly back to Europe, around the Cape of Good Hope.
And then after the Portuguese?
Then the Spanish, then the Dutch, and then the English.
So there was a fair bit of argy-bargy between all these people vying for control of the clove trade.
Most definitely. Most highly competitive.
Yeah. And one thing I have to mention is, of course, this isn't the easiest part of the world to get to. And
even today.
Yeah, and really this has been the ultimate destination for us, sailing on this beautiful vessel, the Ombak Putty, which has taken us to a number of spice islands in this region, and this, the last day of our cruise, has just turned out to be absolutely fantastic.
Because we saw a mountain of cloves.
We certainly did.